An Earthly Child is a Big Finish release from about 9 years ago, featuring Carol Ann Ford returning as Susan about 45 years after she left the part. And this episode also features Paul McGann as the Doctor, and Paul McGann's son, Jake McGann, playing his great-grandson and Susan's son. So this story takes place about 30 years after the events of the Dalek invasion of Earth, and if you haven't seen that episode yet, or don't know what happens in it, then you can feel free to just bow out of this review here, because this story is based on the aftermath of what happens in that story. So naturally there will be some spoilers for that episode in this review, so you've now been warned. So after watching the Dalek invasion of Earth, I found myself really wanting to know what happened with Susan, and what she got up to in her time on Earth, and I think I said in my review that I wanted the TV show to bring her back, so that we could catch up with her, and somehow that still has not happened. So I was very happy when a commenter informed me of this story just a couple of days ago, actually, and even though I have never listened to a Big Finish audio drama before, I got really curious about this one and found myself hastily listening to it. So anyway, let's get talking about this one. Now, the premise of it is that the Doctor finally shows up about 30 years after he left Susan, but of course this is the 8th Doctor, so a lot of time has passed for the Doctor, but only 30 years for Susan. So this is a story that I've wanted to see for some time now, and now I finally have listened to it, and it's solid. It's good. For the most part, the audio is really well handled, although not quite everything works as well as you might hope. Now, firstly, Paul McGann is great as the Doctor. Now, as I haven't heard any Big Finish before, I only know him from his TV movie and his 7-minute short. And honestly, he was great in this story. He's well on his way to actually becoming one of my favorite Doctors just on the basis of this audio. And oftentimes the Doctor will try to balance lightheartedness with seriousness, but honestly, Paul McGann does that better than most of them. And I think it really helps that he just has this confidence and charisma to him. And as he puts it, he has a more youthful disposition than William Hartnell's Doctor. So yeah, he's just really working for me really well. And I also just love Paul McGann's voice, and it's just a great voice for an audio drama. And Carol Ann Ford does well as Susan. She's obviously about 45 years older than when she played Susan in the Dalek invasion of Earth, and as her character has aged 30 years, she does play a much older version of the character, and it does very much feel like this is where her character would be at this point. Basically, Susan is still trying to help the Earth, and she actually is successfully helping the Earth. And she's trying to undo the damage of what was done by the invasion. And actually, interestingly, she's working with this alien to try to help the Earth. And I won't tell you much more about that, because that would ruin the mystery of the situation and what's going on and how it plays out. But I just will say that I think that worked rather well, and it was pretty interesting. And because I have listened to missing episodes where they would have linking narration from one of the actors to tell you what would have been happening on the screen, that doesn't happen in this audio drama, which is interesting. I was kind of expecting that. I was expecting there to be descriptions about the events that were going on, but it was just audio. We could hear people talking and doing their stuff, and that worked really well. I was just really surprised by that, just because I'm so used to those missing episode soundtracks. But yeah, it totally works. They didn't need narration for anything. They did a really good job with that, and I wasn't expecting it. So the person who Susan is at this point in her life is distinctly different from the person that she was when we knew her from the show. And I do like the character that she is now. She's a far more mature and much more of an adult person, and I like the point that she's actually better than I liked her in the actual show. So naturally, in this episode, it has the Doctor and Susan, and I don't really consider it a spoiler to say that they do at some point meet up. And I have two things to say about those scenes. The scenes between the Doctor and Susan are great. I absolutely loved those moments. And with that said, I don't think that there were nearly enough of those scenes, because sadly, for a large part of this story, they aren't sharing the screen together. Although it actually doesn't make sense to say it that way because it's an audio drama, but I think you know what I'm saying. Yeah, but regardless, the stuff that we do get with them is really good. I do kind of wish there'd been more of it, but that's not really a legitimate issue. It's just with so much this means so much, them reuniting, and there just being so little of that in the story. And there is some, it just feels like there should have been more. And that's not like a real issue. It's just I wish there had been more. But moving on, Paul McGann's son, Jake McGann, plays Susan's son and the Doctor's great-grandson, and he does a pretty good job in this. The part doesn't actually demand a lot from him, but I thought that he did well with what he had to do. So while the story is solid, it doesn't have anything that truly elevates it to being a great story. There are actually a few things in this story that feel a little bit familiar. For example, the way that Alex was used in this one is familiar and predictable, but it still works for what they were going for. And there's some stuff that I'm not going to dive into with this because it's a little more detailed than I'm comfortable giving in a spoiler-free review, and I want to keep it spoiler-free just because there's probably quite a few people who haven't heard this one before. Overall, I thought An Earthly Child was a really solid audio drama that was well written, well performed, and just worked well for me. I loved seeing the Doctor and Susan back together after so long, and Paul McGann was brilliant as the 8th Doctor. This was an enjoyable story, and I am going to give An Earthly Child a solid rating of 8 out of 10. This is one of the best titles of any Doctor Who story ever, in my opinion. Initially, I assumed that it would be in reference to Susan, but actually it turned out that it was more in reference to Alex. But yeah, it's just a fantastic title. And for the record, I actually already own several Big Finish audio dramas. I own all of the David Tennant adventures, a little of the Second Doctor Companion Chronicles, and some Philip Hinchcliffe, Tom Baker stuff. And I've been meaning to listen to it for a while, but due to the fact that I've got some other stuff going on and have been making my way through Classic Who, plus I wanted to be able to do regular videos for those reviews on the channel, for those audios, so all these things added up to me just not getting to Big Finish until now, which is a shame, but I finally got into it, and so far it's quite solid. So anyway, folks, that's going to do it for now. I've got lots of Doctor Who reviews up if you're interested in those, and if you want more Big Finish reviews, I'm going to try to get those going monthly. So the next one is probably just going to be the 10th Doctor Adventures Volume 1, but we'll see about that. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to come back. If not, that is fine by me. I just appreciate your time here today. So, with that said, thank you for watching, take care, and have a lovely week.